So it's November 26, 2024. November 26, 2024. Tuesday night going into Wednesday. And I had another pretty bizarre dream. Not really the typical type of dream. Not really an acutely vivid, almost lucid type of dream. This was more of a different, benign dream. So in this dream that I had tonight, my sister, who was disowned from the family for numerous things she did, including stealing a child and abusing the child for 4 or 5 years before dumping the child. That's a story I'll get into a different day in detail, but I'll try to unpack that at some point. But anyway, she was disowned by my mother, my father for a long time until he took her back after my mother died. Um, and she was disowned by my other sister, all family members on her side, and things like that. So, and even years ago, my Aunt Ellen warned me about how evil she was. So she's really evil, really, really evil. Anyway, she somehow got control of my children, and I have no idea how. And in the dream, my children were 7 and 8 years old, around there. They were 7 and 8, or 9 and 10. And she, out of the blue, and there was a reason for this, it wasn't out of kindness or honesty or goodness or decency. It was for some reason, she was forced to do it in the dream. She brought my children to me. And I was living in a really, really rural area, in a trailer, basically, because there had been nothing. There had been no children, because they were stolen and abused and being destroyed and being brainwashed. So they weren't around. So I was living in this trailer that was not appropriate for children. I mean, it could be worse. It wasn't like it wasn't. It was. I mean, it wasn't like the doors were falling off and the windows were broken or anything like that. But it was a mess. And anyway, she drove on up when I wasn't home, and she dumped them off. And then she left. And I believe it was supposed to be a visit. I mean, this dream is so much into the realm of impossible. And when I actually explain it all and show everything, including evidence, it will be clear why such a kindness would never happen, such a decency, such a recognition of reality would never happen. And by recognition of reality, I mean reality of who's not the abuser, who has never been an abuser. That's me. And that's why it would never happen. And it would also destroy all of the brainwashing, the lies, the parental alienation that's gone on. It would destroy it. So it would never happen. But anyway, in this dream, she dumped them off, and I was not home. Obviously, I was not expecting them at that time, or I would have been home. And oddly, in the dream, a man was staying at my place. And I was not in any kind of current relationship with him romantically or anything like that, but he was staying at my place temporarily. I have no idea why. That's something that would basically never happen. And he was. It seemed like he was an ex-husband, my ex-husband, not not my complete off the rails genius, liar, manipulator, sociopath ex-husband, but another ex-husband. Not that I've had a ton of them, I have not, but he was different. He was actually a really nice guy, and he was just slow. He was just really slow. So he wasn't very intelligent, but he was a very nice man. And if I ever would have been married to somebody like that, I would still be married to that person. So he really was not like my ex-husband at all. But because he was slow and too nice and just too through and through easygoing and sweet and slow, he let my sister, when she went to dump them off, I found out later that he had let her come in the trailer and, dump their backpacks or whatever off. And then he told me that she threw one of the dogs a sandwich and commented that the dog was skinny, and then she got in her vehicle and drove away. Anyway, so I found out about that part later in the dream. So in the dream, I came home and voila, there they were. They were 8 and 9 years old, or 9 and 10 years old. Um, the only age they will ever be for me, forever. I could never really recognize anyone else uh, as them, ever. That's their age forever. And anyway, they were very brainwashed with the parental alienation, but they still had the capacity to think and figure things out and remember truths and things like that. And in the dream, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was looking at them. And at one point they were asleep, and at another point I went to look at them, and one of them had gotten up and gotten a bowl and some milk that he'd come with. And because I didn't have that there, because they I had no idea that they were going to be dropped off like that, so I was not prepared at all. And he was eating this bowl of, I believe it was Raisin Bran cereal, on like what you would call the living room area floor. And that was the primary part of the dream. And there were parts of the dream where I was talking to them and they were talking to me. And they were still themselves. The one younger one had been brainwashed and lied to and lied about since before birth, and that one was believing all of the lies, hook, line, and sinker, even though he couldn't, he had no memory of me actually doing anything of the lies, the lies he'd been told. The other one, the older one, remembered the truth and desperately wanted to stay. And in the dream, I was trying to figure out what to do because they were being heinously abused, heinously abused. But, even though this situation was so much more normal than the reality is in real life, it was still a very difficult situation because I could prove the abuse, but it didn't matter. And people who were in power would not listen to the older child that was not completely brainwashed. And the younger child was completely brainwashed and just had no clue of reality. And basically wanted to continue and be pedoed by his father and things like that because he thought that was good and I was bad. And it's kind of strange, like when I first woke up from this dream, what flashed in my mind is this memory of one of the most recent visits, which was long ago, that I had, where my older child asked me, "Okay, so you do that. What other drugs do you do?" And I've never ever done drugs. I've never ever done drugs, ever. My health completely fell apart before my 15th birthday because I have a genetic autoimmune disease that I was born with. I never did drugs. And I have 3 heart conditions as well that have nothing to do with lifestyle. I never did any kind of druggy party lifestyle, drinking lifestyle. No, I never did that, ever. It didn't happen. And, my memory flashed to another visit, the same child, shortly before the one I just talked about. And he asked me, or he told me about these other kids that he met that were in foster care, and they were taken away from their mother because she was a drug addict. These kids were taken away from their mother because she was a drug addict. She did drugs. And again, it's like I never, ever did drugs. It was proven. It was proven I never did drugs. And allegations about me possibly doing drugs were taken off the table. Those allegations were taken off the table because it was so far proven that I never did drugs. The job I have, the jobs I've had, I would never qualify for those jobs. I would never qualify for those jobs if I did drugs because you're drug tested at those jobs. I've never failed a drug test because I've never done drugs. Never. But the lies that they have been told in the pursuit of creating the most severe case of parental alienation possible, on top of the physical abuse they've been subjected to, on top of SA, on top of everything that they have been subjected to, parental alienation is so severe. They don't even know what's real. And they can't even muster any critical thinking. Like, if the allegations were true at all, then how could I hold a job year after year after year after year after year, particularly the kind of jobs I've held, and be such a good source of money? I'm not wealthy. What money I get is now being stolen from me at an unpredictable, ever evolving rate with no court dates, with me not being able to speak. But how would I be such a great, steady source of money? How would I be able to work the kinds of jobs I work for years and never, ever, ever get in trouble for any behavior that resembles a druggy behavior? How could that be? It's a miracle. And the drug test, again, they make you pass to get the kind of job I have. And every job I've had has done drug testing. They don't tolerate you being a druggie because you're handling financial information, you're handling people's bank account information, and other things. Cannot be a druggie. And then they're told that I'm insane. And this is so easy to lie to people and lie to children about somebody else being insane. But isn't it funny how my behaviors in life never ever match up with those stories? Ever. Isn't it funny? Just again, attending work at the kind of jobs I've had, with the kind of responsibilities at those jobs, there would be no way that somebody could be nuts and on drugs. And since all my money's being stolen to pay for the ongoing child abuse and child total destruction, child demolition, and SA, and parental alienation, and abuse by proxy, that's where all my money is going, being stolen from me to keep that going, literally. There's no money for therapy. There's no money for medical care. There's no money for a psychiatrist. I mean, I struggle to do bare bones physical medical care for part of the physical medical problems I have. There is no extra money for counselor, therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, none of that. There's no money because it's all being taken for this nightmare. And if I were nuts like that, like they've been lied to, I would not possibly, be able to ever function anywhere near the realm of passable in society and work. And if I were a druggie like that, same thing. If I were a druggie, if I'd ever been a druggie during any of this, I surely would have had to get myself addicted to the cheap, crazy stuff because the expensive stuff would have been out of my reach. And with my medical issues, any of this stuff would have killed me in short order. Just never been true. But critical thinking is something they don't have. And I find that most people have no capacity for critical thinking. Most people can't look at somebody's life and say, for 10 years, for 20 years, this person's life is not matching these allegations. How come? How come? If these allegations were true, in the past 10 or 20 years, there should be incidents of this person actually doing things that match those allegations. No, not your lies that they did it with no proof at all. Like, you lie and say they do these things, but how come you don't have any video to show that they're doing it? How come? And then how come 10 years later, magically, there's no incidents for 10 whole years? 10 years later, for 10 whole years, there's absolutely nothing. Wow.